We were told to go to college, and if we went to college, we would be successful. And that's not what's happening. I've been successful, but have I been financially free? Have I been financially stable? I've been able to make it by the grace of God. But there's no reason why if I have a $75,000 job, I can barely afford to pay my rent. What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Finally I Can Talk, a pop culture podcast where a former journalist says everything that she's been wanting to say. I'm your host, Kenya Hunter, and you are tuned in to episode 10 of the podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. Remember, you can follow the podcast at Finally I Can Talk on Instagram and TikTok. You can also follow me personally across all platforms at Kenya the Hunter. That's me. That's where I am. Help the algorithm out by following the podcast wherever you listen. We're available on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts. And I am hoping that this video is going to end up on YouTube. I've been trying to do YouTube for a while now. And it keeps messing up, but I think I got it. I think I figured it out. So hoping that this is the YouTube video. So that will be, actually, I don't know what it'll be, but I'll just look up Finally I Can Talk Kenya Hunter and you should find it. Yeah. And what else is there in the plugs? Leave a comment, leave a review, give the podcast 5 stars. Thank you to those of you who have given the podcast 5 stars across all platforms. I really, really appreciate it. If you want the podcast directly into your inbox, you already know what to do. Go to www.finallyicantalk.com and you'll get it right to your email. So a couple things this week and then we'll get right into the topic. So you see my shirt? That's Tony Cade Bambara, activist, writer, Atlanta local. So I spent time at the Tony Cade Bambara Scholar Activism Conference last weekend and it was such a beautiful time. Part of the reason I gave up working in traditional journalism was that I really wanted to spread a message of Black liberation. I wanted to be able to share my opinion and not have it be a thing that would put my job at risk. So now here I am taking the risk and investing in myself. Doing this podcast is one of those ways I'm doing that. And doing things like going to the Tony Cade Bambara Scholar Activism Conference is another way. So Tony Cade Bambara's granddaughter, whose name is Zoe Bambara, she lives in Atlanta, and she is such an inspiration. She, along with some other people, put the conference together, and it was such a beautiful time. I got to hear Zoe speak directly, which was beautiful. She's such a dedicated organizer and incredible person. I met so many people who I have been wanting to meet and engage with in person for a long time. So thank you to y'all for that. I appreciate it a lot. It was a beautiful, beautiful time. And I think I left feeling really inspired. And some of what I learned at the conference will actually go into today. It actually informs much of the things I'm going to be talking about in today's episode. So we'll go ahead and get right into it. Actually, wait. First of all, let's celebrate episode 10. We're in the double digits now, y'all. Yeah, we made it. And I just want to say I am incredibly proud of myself for this. And I am so thankful for everyone who has supported the podcast, because having a podcast, and I know everybody is tired of content creators. Everybody's like, oh, we can't all be content creators. Well, I can, and I'm going to be. I'm so proud because I've wanted to have a podcast since I first listened to my first podcast almost a decade, 13 years ago. And that podcast is The Read, Crystal and Kid Fury. Shout out to them. And ever since I heard them, I was like, I want a podcast too. But I wasn't in the position to do it, and now I am, and so I'm doing it. And yes, the podcast market is saturated, but I feel if you're here, just know this. You were here in the beginning, because Finally I Can Talk will prevail. Finally I Can Talk is going to be one of the top podcasts in the world. People are going to be coming here for insight to learn about all the political and pop culture things and how the two intertwine. They're going to be coming here, and y'all will be able to say, I supported Kenya first. I've been with Kenya since the whiteboard in the background. That's if this ends up on YouTube. But anyways, I don't want to belabor the point, but thank y'all so much for supporting the podcast. It means the world to me for your early support. Thank you. And I just know that it's going to get better and better. Every episode gets better. Every episode gets better. So yeah, we're doing the things. We're getting better. We're improving. We're doing all the kinks and all of that. We're getting it. So thank y'all. Again, I am incredibly grateful for every single one of you who listens, whether you've listened for 30 seconds, whether you just heard the theme song, or whether you have listened to the whole hour, even if you listen to like half of it. I appreciate you either way. Thank you. So we'll get right on into our hot topics this week in the segment that we call, all right, let's talk about it. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about this week, it's not a lot of pop culture stuff that I really am going to go in depth with today. But one of the things I really wanted to talk about, just having journalism in my heart, is TMZ. TMZ, which now that I think about it, what does TMZ even stand for? I don't know. But TMZ, amid the government shutdown, has been on the lookout to see if our Congress members are out on vacation, if they're out spending our taxpayer dollars. And I just want to say, bravo. Now, typically, I'm not on TMZ's side. Typically, I'm not. And that's because I came up in a traditional journalism background. So I've been taught you don't pay your sources. You find a way to, be kind to people. You don't track people. You do things to keep rapport with your sources. You know what I'm saying? You do things to keep rapport. And among those things is not sitting outside of people's houses like the paparazzi, but I guess TMZ is the paparazzi. But it's not that. It's not being the very first to report that somebody's passed away. Excuse me. It's a lot of things. It's not the way they write. Because if you've ever read a TMZ article, you know that it's a little choppy, and I just don't write like that. It's journalism, but it's a form of journalism that isn't traditional. But. Now, I'm not going to hold you. I do think that if you are a TMZ reporter, you do have to have basic journalism chops. You do. You have to have some level of credibility. It's a reason why TMZ has become one of the most trusted sources when it comes to a celebrity death. They figured out the credibility around that. Some of it through pretty ways, and do we need to be the very first on this if the family ain't found out? Because sometimes people find out about their celebrity family member dying because it was posted on TMZ. But amid this government shutdown, where TSA agents aren't being paid, FEMA workers aren't being paid, and all the other agencies under DHS, except ICE. ICE been getting paid. And TSA just got paid for the first time last week. But the TSA lines were so long, and Delta Airlines, which is based here in Atlanta, even suspended a service that I didn't even know they had. Did you know that apparently if a member of Congress flies Delta, they get escorted past TSA? And that would explain why I've never seen a member of Congress in the TSA line. But let me tell you something. If we're all in line for 18 hours, you too, member of Congress, because I feel like a lot of people forget. I feel like we forget members of Congress represent a constituency. Members of Congress are supposed to be representative of us and our needs in their district, in their state. They're supposed to be representing us. And having these multi-millionaire Congress members is not representative of the average American worker. It just isn't. The average American is not doing what members of Congress are doing for a living. And I think that that's why and also they're not supposed to just be able to skirt across TSA just because they're a member of Congress. Now, I do think that it's been testy in the political world. So I can understand why they may need to take some extra precaution and maybe not be in a line with the rest of us. However, I think that it should be a situation where, like, if you're someone who is at heightened risk of danger because you've been getting credible threats to your office or something like that, then we escort you and make sure you're good and on your way. But as for the rest of y'all, no, you're a regular citizen. And let me tell you something. If I see a member of Congress in line with me in TSA, let me tell you, I have a list of complaints. And I would be happy to roll them out like a CVS receipt. Yeah, you gonna hear me today because I got something to say. Why did y'all email me about them student loans? And we're gonna get to that as well. Next, actually. Why did you email me about them student loans? Why we don't have a stoplight outside my neighborhood? Why does my neighborhood smell like dog food? Can you talk to the president about that, please? And I know why it smells like dog food, because I live in a majority Black community in Atlanta. And there's lots of industrial things over here, and they're producing dog food. And it stinks. It smells like dog food. It's disgusting. It's a terrible smell. But also, not only that, it's like, bro, why do so many Black communities live next to factories that emit all these fumes? And who knows what that's doing to our lung health? Well, we do know, because Black people are disproportionately impacted by asthma. But that's neither here nor there right now. What the issue is, TMZ is on that ass, and I like it. TMZ is on Congress ass. They're like, are you on vacation during a government shutdown when TSA workers are not getting paid and people are missing their flights because the TSA line is 4 hours because all the TSA agents called out so they could go and DoorDash because they're not getting no money here? Is that what I see? Do I see Lindsey Graham over at Disney World? How you got there? Do I see 30 members of Congress out in Scotland? How you got there? Why are you on vacation when y'all need to be figuring out how to open the government back up? And mind you, let's remember, this is all about Democrats and Republicans not being able to agree on how ICE should be allowed to act. Democrats want ICE agents to take their masks off. They want ICE agents to stop using so much force. Mind you, the bare minimum of what Democrats are asking for. And I'm not saying that I'm on anybody's side. I'm saying what they're asking for is the bare minimum. It's the bare minimum. Is ICE agents not wearing masks and daggone near kidnapping people and buying up warehouses that are not meant for suitable living conditions, that don't have suitable living conditions, so they can stuff more undocumented people in them and treat those people with such little dignity. I like it because honestly, I think that more members of Congress, if you're a public official, I am not saying that you don't deserve the right to your private life, but what I am saying is you need to be a little more scared. You need to be a little more concerned about the optics. You need to be a little more concerned about the fact that you're on vacation when not only are employees under DHS not being paid, but also gas is $58 a gallon. All due to a war that we didn't ask for. And I understand that we in America are privileged to pay for this war through gas money and not through our lives and missiles over our heads. But like I said in episode 6, Black people are still victims of imperialism, and that is why we owe the people of Iran our solidarity. And so, yeah, TMZ, stay on them. Stay on them, TMZ. And again, I'm not usually on the side of TMZ, but I personally like it. And I'm applauding them. They done caught everybody. Democrats, Republicans, in between. They done caught everybody. Because get back to DC and make something shake. Get back to DC and do something. Speaking of DC and doing things and useless decisions. So let me take a sip of wine before this. So on April Fool's Day, I woke up at like maybe midnight and checked my email. And lo and behold, it's an email from the Department of Education. I said, what could this be? I knew what it was. It was them letting me know that since I was on the SAVE Act, which was an affordable plan that former President Joe Biden created, so our monthly income-based payments will be lower. Since you're on the illegal SAVE plan, they emphasize illegal 18 times. You're going to need to switch. And I knew what that meant. We're going to have to switch to plans that are more expensive, and people are panicking about that. Thousands of people got the email about the SAVE Act plan, about the SAVE plan, not the SAVE Act. SAVE Act's completely different. About the SAVE plan. They got the email, and people are really panicking and concerned. Now, I'm not going to lie. Your girl's in debt. I am in student loan debt. I went to 2 private schools. And if I hadn't been so young and I understood the world more when I was 18, if I had understood the world a little bit more, I probably would have made different decisions about where I went to school, what degree I got, how I would utilize it in my life. Because in all honesty, actually, I don't know what I would have done. I could have been a STEM major, but I would have failed because I don't like science. I think I was in chemistry for a week, and I said, yeah, let me go ahead and withdraw because I didn't know. I was like, there's math in this science? That's crazy. Get me out of here. But I definitely would have done things differently. And I think that's the thing about student loans that make me feel like we need to do something different. There needs to be a different system. I am someone who believes that people should be able to go to college for free. Why? Mostly because college is damn near mandatory at this point, almost as mandatory as, actually no, just about as equally mandatory as a high school diploma. Basic jobs are demanding that you have a college degree, a bachelor's degree at a minimum. Many more jobs are starting to ask for master's degrees. Now, I have my master's, and I'm proud of it. I have my master's in journalism. Shout out to Emerson College and, Brenau University as well, where I went to undergrad. But I have my master's, but it hasn't really made a difference in my income because they say that your income will be higher if you have your master's degree as opposed to someone with their bachelor's degree. I don't think that's true. It's really more, in journalism, it's really more about experience. And then look at this. I wanted to get out of journalism because it was just so oppressive and so trying, especially in these times. I'm not even doing the thing that I had planned to do for the rest of my life. And I'm learning different things now in different positions, and I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful that I am in a position where I can do that. But the new student loan stuff puts that at risk for me. And I'm only 30 years old. There are people who these federal student loans have ruined their life. And then the other thing is this. We've been in this weird limbo. We've been in this weird limbo for 7 years now with these loans. And it feels like it's weirder for me because, so I graduated from my master's program in 2019, and I went straight into my master's program from my undergrad, which I graduated from in 2018. So I didn't have a situation where I was paying my student loans. I was supposed to start paying my student loans because, you get the 6-month grace period. So I graduated in like September of 2019. Then comes 2020, March, right? That's when I'm supposed to start paying. Literally, I signed up for my plan March 1st, March 13th, 2020. Everything got weird with COVID-19. And they tell me student loans are paused. So I'm like, okay, whatever. Then student loans just kept getting pushed back and pushed back and pushed back and pushed back. I'm like, when am I supposed to start paying? And what am I supposed to start paying? Because at this point, I'm thinking, okay, I have to, because when you're on a federal income-based plan, the more money you make, the higher your payment goes. And mind you, this is my first time out in the world. My mother has just passed away. I'm confused about everything regarding adulthood. I just know I haven't had to pay these student loans. I'm concerned about how much money I'm actually going to make, because I'm like, will my student loan end up being $1,200 a month, and I can't afford that if I get this high paying job, but maybe I'll be able to afford it. I don't know. I'm lost. And then I was always, for 7 years, I've just been bracing for something with these student loans to happen. Like, okay, I need to get on a plan. I got to renew. I need to keep renewing, and I need to log in and look at my super high balance. And it just is. So the student loan situation is so overwhelming, because most of us don't think of our finances in a long-term sense. We think about it monthly. Am I going to get by this month? Will I have the money to get this month? How much money will I have left over for the month? And is there anything I need to take care of this month? Am I going to have to wait until next month to do this? Like, that's how we're thinking about finances, because that's the only way that we can. So many of us are living paycheck to paycheck. It's a sad truth. So many of us are living paycheck to paycheck. Many Americans do not have even $100, $400 for the average emergency. And so now you're telling me, after all this time, that now that $400 for an emergency is going to have to be my monthly payment? In a time where the economy is like this? It's so unrealistic. And it's all based on a fake moral code of, if you take out a loan, you pay it back. And I understand this whole thing about moral responsibility and everything, but this is the thing. We were told to go to college, and if we went to college, we would be successful. And that's not what's happening. I've been successful, but have I been financially free? Have I been financially stable? I've been able to make it by the grace of God. But there's no reason why, if I have a $75,000 job, I can barely afford to pay my rent. That's so many people's reality right now. I don't make $75,000 right now. But even when I was, because the rent is high, the groceries are high, the energy is high, everything is high, the gas is high, the car notes are high, the clothes are high, everything's high. So when the SAVE plan came out, I said, oh, okay, thank God. Even though Joe Biden campaigned on student loan forgiveness, I was like, you know what, SAVE plan, I'll take it. SAVE plan 20, I'll take it. 20 years, all right, cool, I'll take it. So I switch over. Only for a year or two later to be told, no, actually, we're going to put you back on that expensive plan that I haven't yet ever paid. My wallet ain't never seen that. But let me tell you, before I get into my real thoughts on this, because that's just my personal situation, but before I get into my real thoughts on this, I just want to encourage all of us. And I know this is easier said than done, but I really want to encourage us to not panic about this, because we don't know what is coming forward. There are organizations that are doing their best to organize and figure something out for us. And I'm thankful for those organizations, and I'm glad they exist. There's a few that I can put in the description on this podcast episode, and you'll see it. But I know that Debt Strike is one of them, and they've been organizing a lot around student loan debt. There's quite a few organizations that offer services and education. And I also think there are so many people who don't know their options. I'm one of the people, I don't know all of my options, because even logging into the portal gives me anxiety. And so I really want to encourage us to do our best to not panic, because on a spiritual level, when you're panicking about money, and money is a real reason to panic. It's easy. And this is why I emphasize that it's so much easier said than done. But when you're panicking about money, you put yourself in a state spiritually to not be able to receive money. And then money starts running away from you. I know because I've been there. I'm just getting out of this phase in my life where money was running away from me. And thank God, because I've gotten myself aligned spiritually, I see things opening up for me. I see opportunities, and I'm manifesting my loans being paid off, point blank, period. I'm not even doing the jokey joke, Jesus forgave my loans. I'm not doing that. I believe that my loans are going to get paid. I fully believe that. And I also believe that it's not going to ruin my life. However, this does have the capability of ruining many people's lives. And that is disgusting and that is unfair, especially considering how student loan debt disproportionately impacts Black people. Matter of fact, let's look up some statistics. I always keep my handy laptop here. Let's look up some statistics. All right, boom, here's the nut graph. All right, so this report, which I'll link in the description. According to research in a recent Roosevelt issue brief, Black students pursuing higher education are more likely to take on debt and in higher amounts. Almost 51% of Black students take on student loans compared to 40.2% of their white peers. Even within the same income bracket, Black borrowers hold more student loan debt than white borrowers. In fact, Black borrowers hold almost a quarter of all outstanding student debt, despite Black individuals making up only 13% of the U.S. population. So this is something that is impacting Black people disproportionately. And may I suggest that perhaps this is part of why none of our elected officials seem to care about this student loan issue. Because have you noticed that even the most progressive of politicians have been kind of mute on this student loan issue? I haven't seen it. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I have not seen it. We all got this email and I haven't seen much noise from them. And I keep up. So I'm not going to say it's not true, but if the noise is happening, it ain't loud enough. But could it be because this is something that disproportionately impacts Black student borrowers? Food for thought. Yesterday, I made a tweet asking, how do we organize around this? Because the fact of the matter was, I saw so many people saying that they were scared, saying that this ruined their day. One girl under my tweet told me she cried when she got that email from the Department of Education. So I said, how do we organize around this? Because clearly we have the numbers. And I know Twitter and social media isn't real life, but there are obviously thousands of people who are terrified of what's to come. So I said, how do we organize around the issue? What broke my heart about the tweet was the lack of hope that I saw in the comments, in the quote tweets, all of it. One person said student loan forgiveness was cooked when people went and voted for Harambe in the 2016 election. And that is true that people did that. And I really forgot about that. That was, oh my gosh. So, some other people were like, you should have been organizing when Kamala was running. One thing I really want people to get away from is the idea that elected officials are the only way, or even the primary way, to get the things that we need. I understand that electoral politics has been told that to us that it's the end all be all, but I just don't believe that to be true, given how much in my lifetime I have not received from elected officials. The fact of the matter is, y'all can get on the debt strike organization for being frustrated with Biden about the SAVE Act or the SAVE Plan. I keep calling it the SAVE Act. The SAVE Plan. Y'all can get on them about that, but the fact of the matter is, the thing that we were promised from President Biden was different than what he offered. Because the truth is, did he really want student loan forgiveness? It didn't seem like he did while he was on the campaign trail. He was talking about $10,000 of forgiveness. That wasn't going to help the vast majority of us. Our interest was just going to grow by $10,000 again, and then who cares? I've seen people literally create GoFundMes and get their student loans paid off. I've seen people work their asses off and have support from their families to get their loans paid off. And so my question is, why couldn't we do the same? Why are we so scared to organize around this issue? And I know the answer. I know a few answers, actually. And I think that there are real questions to be asked in the discussion about organizing around getting these loans canceled, getting the Department of Education to say enough. Because y'all went almost 7 years without any real payment from us, from many of us. So it seems like you don't really need the money. It seems like they don't really need it. It's just all moral stuff. It's, if you take out a loan, you're responsible for paying it back. As if so many of them rich people in Washington haven't been forgiven. I've seen some of these people get their PPP loans forgiven. Meanwhile, it's black people going to jail behind the PPP loans. How'd that work? There are real questions to be answered and to be discussed when it comes to student loan debt organizing. For example, we know they garnish wages. We know that when you don't pay your debts, your credit score tanks. And we know that when your credit score tanks, you can't get cars, you can't get apartments, you can't get a house, you can't get a loan for anything. Your life can end up on pause if you have bad credit. So then with that, it's like, okay, if garnishing wages, do we need to start thinking more about abolishing a cashless society? Because pay me under the table, how about that? For credit scores and the concerns around that, why do we continue to fall for this credit score system? Do we need to rethink that? And do we need to do organizing around that first? Because is a credit score system not biased against black people as well? There are real things and real questions to be asked around organizing. If people just do decide, all right, we not paying no more because they can't get all of us, and they garnish all of our wages, how do we survive the next day, the next month? Especially for people that have families. These are real questions that I have in all seriousness. But I cannot help but think that it's possible to organize around this issue and it go outside of policy. It go outside of hoping elected officials will care enough. Electoral politics in the last few years hasn't done Nathaniel for anybody. Because I don't think the Democrats and Republicans are the same, but I also think that it's silly to think that they don't have common interests. And that they're not super duper into capitalism. And that's part of this, right? Is the capitalism discussion. And this is part of why I don't believe that black people should be defending capitalism at all. At all. And there's some education that needs to be done around capitalism. And I'm aware of that because I am still doing my work around that. But before I'm actually going to move into a different discussion around capitalism briefly. But I just want to say that about the student loan issue. We do need to organize. I think organizing is the only way. I don't know what it looks like. I don't know who has the answer. But collectivism feels like a part of the answer when it comes to the student loan issue. All of us were duped. All of us were lied to when it comes to this college education. We were told one thing and we got another. We got a bad economy. We got expensive interest rates. We got $500, $700 car notes. These are not the same. And we're doing it with the same wages our parents had. That's ridiculous. Our parents cannot even fathom how difficult it is for us to live because they really don't understand that the rent for a studio apartment on average is like $1,600 for a studio. People used to pay that much for penthouses. I was watching Reba one time, and Van and Cheyenne were about to get an apartment, and they were like, oh yeah, like it's $700 a month. And Reba was like, oh my God, you can get something nice for $700 a month. And that was in like 2002 or something. Do you know what you can get now for $700 a month? A room, if that. And if you want a $700 apartment, you better be prepared to drive an hour to the grocery store. You better be prepared to drive 2 hours for a hospital. If it's a grocery store next to you, if it's a hospital next to you, a pharmacy next to you, be prepared for that rent to go up $300 because that's an amenity. These apartments ain't giving out amenities no more. Can't go to. You got to still pay for your gym membership, and I live in an $1,800 apartment. That's crazy. It's disgusting that we cannot afford to live a comfortable life. We don't need to be penny pinching. We deserve to be able to thrive. But this is what capitalism does. Capitalism bleeds you out. It bleeds and bleeds and bleeds. Also, a few people can be rich. And that doesn't change with the black billionaires either. The black capitalists neither. They also will run you dry until you have nothing left. And that brings me into my next topic. So, what was going on this week with, there's Jay-Z who did that GQ interview and was like, I didn't take advantage of anybody to become a billionaire. There was Nick Cannon and Chili doing the things with and then more recently, LeBron James, a billionaire. We caught him on camera, red-handed, being anti-black about Memphis. Okay, so I know that Jay-Z and Beyonce are people that folks are really sensitive about in the black community. People love Beyonce. I love Beyonce, but the fact of the matter is she's a billionaire. Jay-Z is a billionaire. LeBron James is a billionaire. You cannot become a billionaire without exploiting people. I do not see how it is possible. One of the things that has really stuck with me is, and I really feel like people don't understand or can fathom how big of a number a billion is. 1 million seconds is 11 days. A billion seconds is 33 years. Hello. I can't even figure out like what the times table is on that because it's, and so the idea that I should think that being a billionaire is a win for all black people if the billionaire is black feels silly to me. I will say I understand how many people got there because throughout our time in school as black children, much of celebrating black history has been about celebrating the first black person to achieve something great in a white space. Think like Ketanji Jackson on the Supreme Court. Who else? She's the only one I can think of right now. Jackie Robinson. When we think about these things, we think about the achievements they've made in the white space. And I'm not saying that it's a bad thing, but what I am saying is we need to start thinking more about the achievements that we make in black spaces. Because when we're talking billions of dollars, billions of dollars, emulating capitalism, which in my opinion is a structure of white supremacy, does not get Black people free. There's nothing about anything that involves white supremacy that is going to get Black people free. Additionally, we also need to understand that the whole thing with Black business, with support Black business, support Black wealth, and that this is our way to wealth, we got to understand something. That was a ploy from Richard Nixon, President Richard Nixon, one of the most corrupt presidents we've had, to destabilize radical movements. The radical movement was not a let's all do capitalism kind of thing. It was a very socialist movement. It was a very radical mutual aid based movement. And Richard Nixon was like, yeah, enough of that. Let's give them a piece of our pie. And let me tell you something. The piece of their pie is this big. It's like when they slice up the pizza slices to give to 32 kids. And now one slice of pizza is cut into 4 slices of pizza. It's like that. You understand? That's not going to get us free. I understand why people think that. And there's definitely deliberate motive in ensuring that Black people do not understand different forms of economic governing. And we only understand money as something that you earn because you're a good person. And that if you don't have a job, if you're homeless, you must have done something wrong. But once we understand that people are exploiting us and that we are overworked and underpaid, no matter what we do, I think people will start to understand more and more how capitalism is no good for us. It just isn't. And it never will be. It never will be. And I think one of the things that really concerns me is people's, like, how quick people are to defend billionaires. I remember one time I made a tweet about Megan Thee Stallion and how Tory Lanez shot her. And someone said, do you think that billionaires like LeBron James would be defending Tory Lanez if there wasn't some truth to it? What does that mean to me? I do not care if someone is a billionaire and what they talking about. There's nothing about how much money someone makes that's going to make me listen to them more about violence against a woman, a Black woman specifically. But that shocked me because it's like, do you think LeBron James is someone to listen to just because he's a billionaire? Especially when we know that LeBron James is like not a good person. Like, we just saw LeBron James talk so negatively about Memphis and say that the Grizzlies need to be moved to Nashville because, Nashville got Vanderbilt and da-da-da-da and blah, 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 blah. And I'm 41. You think I wanted to spend my time in Memphis? Like, and saying this in front of mixed company. And it just gave very anti-Black to me. But I've also been knowing that LeBron James wasn't a good person when he was dancing to that Tory Lanez song right after he shot Megan Thee Stallion. And when he was holding that Malcolm X book saying, yeah, I've been reading this. We know you haven't been reading that book. Why do I know that? Because you're a billionaire. What is Malcolm X talking to LeBron James about that he resonates with? LeBron James also went to Memphis in shoes with a colorway that matched the hotel where Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated. And he thought that was a cool thing to do? And I'm supposed to listen to LeBron James because he's a billionaire? Get so for real. That's all I have for today's episode of Finally I Can Talk. Thank y'all so much for listening. Like I said earlier, you can follow the TikTok and Instagram, Finally I Can Talk. And you can also follow me everywhere at Kenya the Hunter. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment, leave a review, and it would make me feel good. It'll help the algorithm out. Don't let me fall out of your algorithm, y'all. New episodes come out every Friday. I know this one's a little late, but new episodes come out every Friday unless I say otherwise. All right, y'all. Thanks so much for listening. Bye.